I was a traveling salesperson for a small company a few years ago. That put me on the road a lot and had me driving all over my region. Some sales calls were day trips and some were overnights. The day trips put me driving late into the night a lot of the time. One night, I was on a country road and I was really tired. I blinked away fatigue, but I thought I saw something black in the road. I swerved to avoid it, but it was too late and I drove right over it. At first, nothing happened, but then I heard a flapping noise and the road felt mushy. I pulled over, got out of my car to check what was up, and sure enough, 2 of my tires were flat. Sure, I had 1 spare, but not 2. I looked down the road and saw what I could only call was a crude stop stick that police used in car chases, a homemade version with nails pounded upward through a board. I went back to my car when another vehicle came off a side road and started toward me. Some intuitive voice inside me told me that these people were not coming to help me. There was a cornfield beside the car, so I stepped toward it. The car stopped and 2 guys got out. Ordinarily, you would think that they would ask if I needed help. Instead, they just came toward me. That's when I noticed that one of them was holding something in his hand, and it looked like a club or something. I just got this sense of menace coming off those 2 men. I checked my pockets and discovered that I left my cell phone in my car. That's when I turned and ran into the corn. The men shouted after me, "Hey, stop running!" But I just kept plowing through the cornfield, not really knowing where I was going. I heard the men cutting through the corn plants too, one of them shouting at the other one, asking if he saw me. "Where is he?" They were definitely after me. I cut to my right across several rows of corn as the men chased after me. The leaf slapped across my face as I pushed my way through the corn plants. All the while, I heard the other men rushing through the plants in pursuit of me. Somehow, I ended up coming out of the cornfield about a half mile away from my car. I sprinted toward it, hearing the sounds of the men rushing through the cornfield. It was a race, but I made it to my car about 30 seconds before they made it out of the corn. I got in my car and immediately dialed 911 and started my car. It pained me to drive my car on its rims, but it was better than having those men get their hands on me. I watched in the rearview mirror as the men raced along the cornfield. But instead of coming after me, they ran toward their vehicle and drove away. They must have guessed that I'd called the police. When I felt safe, I pulled my car back onto the side of the road and waited for a county sheriff deputy to show up. When he got there, he let me know there had been several people robbed by what he called road pirates, and I had gotten very lucky that night. When I was young, I was really into truckers because my uncle was one. He even let me take a short trip with him one time. So whenever we were on the road, I would look up at the big rigs when we passed by them, and I begged my parents to stop at the truck stops because they were a haven for truckers. One time they finally gave in, even though we were traveling at night. Once we got there, my parents went into the convenience store while I stayed out in the parking lot and marveled at all the big trucks. I guess I got engrossed in all the vehicles because I wandered deep into the parking lot, surrounded by all those big rigs. I came around a corner of one truck when I saw a man standing there. He had this strange look, but when he saw me, he smiled. Maybe I was too obvious in my adoration of the big trucks. He asked me if I wanted to see inside of his truck. I looked around to see if I could see my parents in the store, but they were not in my sideline. Despite feeling a little bit anxious, the draw of seeing inside the big rig was just too much. The man said to follow him, and he led me along the rows of the trucks. We passed by truck after truck, and I started to wonder which one was his. They all looked so big. We just kept going, and I slowed down as we started to reach the end of a row. I had just about come to a stop when he reached out and grabbed me by the shoulder and started tugging me along. I asked the man where his truck was, but the smile had left his face. Instead, he had a hard, determined expression. That's when I really got scared. He was practically pulling me along now. I let out a scream, but he told me to shut up. By then, we were heading for a dark-colored paneled van at the far side of the parking lot. I think I panicked and my body went limp as I gave up. He just dragged me across the pavement like I was a rag doll. We're halfway to his van when someone shouted, "Hey, where are you going with that kid?" When I looked around, I saw a tall man standing next to one of the trucks. He watched the two of us intently for a few seconds, but the other man kept dragging me along. The tall man started for us at a run, shouting at the other man to stop. The man who had me must have panicked and he let me go. I fell hard onto the asphalt, and the man who had me took off running for the van. The tall man ran for me, and when he got to me, he helped me up. I heard an engine start up, and the next thing I knew, the van jetted out of the parking lot. The tall man was so kind, and he led me back to the store and my parents. As we walked there, he told me that I'd probably come close to being kidnapped. From then on out, my parents never let me out of their sight when we were making pit stops. In college, I made semi-regular trips home from campus to visit family who lived 3 hours away. Little did I know that one trip might have been my last. Not being rich, I had a job that had me working the night shift, so that put me on the road late at night when I went to visit my family. It also meant drinking plenty of coffee and Mountain Dew to stay awake. About halfway home, I got the call of nature that had me in search of a gas station, a rest stop, or even just a group of trees. Good fortune shined upon me, and I saw a rest stop was just a few miles down the road. When I got there, I immediately pulled in and saw that I was the only one there. At first, I didn't think anything of it, but a sense of unease settled over me because the place was completely empty. Then again, it was the middle of the night. I got out of my car and surveyed the place because I was still getting these bad vibes. I did see a small building with vending machines that I decided I would stop at to get powered up on caffeine for the rest of the drive. But first things first, I headed for the main building with the bathrooms. In the lobby, I saw racks of tourism brochures and a map of the state of the wall telling me where I was, which I already knew. What stood out to me was how quiet the place was. I had stopped in here many times, and usually there were families and other travelers streaming in and out of the two buildings. I'd never been there without anyone else present, and I expected there might be a state worker there, but the place was empty. Nature propelled me into the bathroom, but as soon as I entered the room, I got this sense that I really wasn't alone, but I didn't see anyone. I even looked under the stalls, but no one was there as far as I could tell. I decided to take care of business and get out of there. But all the while, I had this feeling that something was not right. As soon as I finished up, I stepped back and leaned back down to check the stalls again. That's when I saw a pair of boots touch down on the floor. I slowly backed toward the door when a man dressed in all black came out of the stall holding a long knife in his hand. He started toward me and I whirled around and ripped the door open. The man roared at me and screamed for me not to run for it, but there was no way I was staying. I heard his footfalls coming at me, but fear put me into hyperdrive and I jetted out of the bathroom and then out of the building. I heard the door open behind me, but I was halfway to my car by then. The man yelled like a wounded animal as he chased me. I unlocked my door with my key fob and was inside my car in record time. I wasted no time in getting the car started and on the move. The man must have guessed that there was no way of getting to me, but he pulled up and just stared at me as I peeled out of the parking lot and got back on the road. I can tell you I only saw dark intentions behind his eyes, and could only imagine what he had in store for me if he'd got me. I called 911 and told them there was some kind of maniac at the rest stop. They said they'd send a state trooper since their headquarters was just up the road. When I arrived at my parents' house, I called the highway patrol office to see if they caught the guy, but the trooper said the place was empty. I made a solemn vow never to enter that place in the middle of the night ever again.